Time now for the Daily Answer, sponsored by Salem Surround on The Answer Now TV.
Jeff Balabon, head of ACLJ Jerusalem. Jeff, we're going to talk about some of the updates that you've been doing, some of the meetings you've been having, because it feels like it kind of goes, the Israel-Gaza conflict, it kind of goes in and out of style, I feel like, with the news cycle. And right now is one of those times where it's quiet. Now, I don't know if it's quiet because it is actually quiet, or it's quiet because they see the ratings are stronger, talking about Zelensky or Ukraine, or talking about whatever else could be going on in this country and the world. But right now, when we don't get actually information on the regular, I want to make sure we are checking in with you to see how things are actually going for our team at ACLJ Jerusalem, but also in this war right now.
Sure. Well, let's remind everybody, it's day 683, and you see me and you see others wearing this yellow ribbon that's the hostage ribbon, and there's still 50 hostages, 20 of whom are living. And there's news today of a potential deal being struck, but honestly, it's a deal that's been reported by Israel's enemies, and Israel's being pressured into it. So things are happening constantly, and there's never a moment that people here are not living with an awareness. It's a very small country. It's a very united country, that there are hostages, some of whom living in horrendous conditions, truly horrendous conditions. So yeah, there's an ongoing sense of that. There's an ongoing war. We don't hear about it necessarily all the time in the news, but there are people fighting on the fronts all the time. And here in Jerusalem, even the capital, in the last week we had, if I'm recalling correctly, it's not even that newsworthy anymore, 2 alarms of incoming missiles or rockets that we had to go run to shelters for. So it is an ongoing war, not just at the front, but throughout Jerusalem.
And Jeff, we see this now, this new push that places like the New York Times are putting out there, that there is allegedly a new plan for a ceasefire that Hamas is putting out there and signing on to. We know how these have gone in the past when they have put out a plan. They're normally have a poison pill in them, something that is unworkable for Israeli security. We have not seen a response from the prime minister yet, but I want to get your take on that, because this is just coming out overnight that there is purportedly a new plan for a ceasefire in Gaza.
So the New York Times reports of the plan are skimpier on details than some of the Israeli reports. The Israeli reports are that the offer is that Hamas will release 10 live hostages, or Gazans release 10 live hostages, in exchange for a 60-day ceasefire, and the release by Israel of 150 convicted terrorists serving lifetime sentences. Now, just reminding everybody that it was convicted terrorists who were released, like Yahya Sinwar, that actually planned and executed October 7th. And so this is something which Israel gives into because of global pressure and because of its desperate internal desire to see these hostages come back alive. But the Hamas is saying nothing. They're proudly stating nothing is saying here relating to giving up Hamas weapons. Meanwhile, Israel's position has been release all the hostages, disarm Hamas, demilitarize the Gaza Strip, and that if there's any governance taking over Gaza, it has to be non-terrorist, meaning not the Palestinian Authority, which is terrorists, and not Hamas, which is terrorists. So there's a big gap between them. Nonetheless, what this does seem like is a big push after this last round of terrible press, honestly, open lies about Israel trying to starve people or cause genocide. Israel does the opposite, to again try to put pressure really here internally on the politics. And basically this seems to be trying to put pressure on Netanyahu himself, collapse his government. That's what it looks like, to me at least, what this so-called new deal looks to be. It's stuff that's already been rejected. Israel's under pressure to look at it again.
Yeah, it's a PR move that maybe Israel has to look at, unfortunately. But look, I mean, I think that window, like you said, where all of a sudden there was this new moment just a few weeks ago where it was back in the press, and you're right, that the narrative was starvation and all of these things that were happening. It gave also the opportunity for the media and for media personalities and for musicians and all those, even those that supported Israel before, to be able to cave without really much attention. To finally be able to say, well, I supported Israel at the beginning, but clearly now, I mean, you saw with U2, they each individually put out a statement. And again, I loved what they said originally. They were very much on the right side, I would say, of history. But now they are essentially caving to what you're probably right, which is probably to what the press is pushing them to do. And unfortunately, that is happening again and again and again when you're given these moments of, like you said, lies that end up turning into the mainstream media's facts.
Look, the problem is exactly that. People get worn down, and unfortunately, I think people have a hard time believing just how mendacious, just how false and evil much of the global media is. They simply lie about this. I mean, there are some wonderful people sending out the right messages. I think here at ACLJ, one of the most important things we do is not only that we're here and know what's going on firsthand, but that we bring it to Americans who do care and they need to know what's actually happening. But there's been, it's day 683 since October 7th. It's 683 days, honestly, of relentless lies about the state of Israel and what's happening there. And it's wearing on people, but people are afraid to look at the media. The alternative is, oh my God, I can't trust the news at all. Unfortunately, that's the truth.
Yeah, and it's exhausting. I mean, you're not wrong. It is exhausting. They have worn us down. They've worn a lot of people down. They've worn the American people down to really have to not only shape their point of view, but even to just sort of pretend it's not happening at some point, just to ignore it. And what I'm hopeful is that we're able to, everyone wants the war to end and for it to wrap up. It's just the method is of where you get there at this point. Has it gone too far to be one of these, ceasefire, shake hands at the end of it kind of meetings? I think probably. But where does that leave us? We'll have to see. Well, but that is the reason why we are there. It's the reason we keep these things in the front of people's minds, because it's easy. Look, the smallest cases. Look at what happened with President Trump meeting with Vladimir Putin. The narrative coming out of there was he didn't get a ceasefire. He didn't get it done like he said he was going to. Now, if you had watched any of the interviews leading up to it for President Trump, since they decided, he said, I'm not planning on getting a ceasefire out of this. I'm planning this to get to stage 2 and then hopefully get to meeting 3, which actually puts the two of them in the room together. That was always the plan. That plan looks like it may come to fruition. However, they decided that we're going to spin this and we're just going to make it look like it's a giant disaster and put egg on the face of the American people for no reason other than press.
Well, and Jeff, another question I want to ask you about is things that don't get brought up enough by our media, especially when it pertains to the region, unless they can go after Israel. But something that Israel has been concerned about, we here at the ACLJ have been concerned about. We have our office in Washington working on this, and this is the plight of minority communities in Syria.
That's right.
And we know that Israel took action to try and protect many of those minority communities, whether it be Christian or Druze. They used airstrikes to try and push back against the groups. But there are concerning reports now, something we've been afraid was the truth, but we're waiting and we're working with partners in Congress as well as at the UN about if the Syrian government is actually sanctioning this. And there are reports that actually the Syrian government, as well as mosques within Syria, are calling for jihad against these minority communities. And I wanted you to speak to that because it's something that Israel deeply cares about, protecting minority populations in the region, as well as we here at the ACLJ.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most perverse reversals of reality that's been pushed now is that Israel or Israelis are somehow attacking Christians and trying to commit genocide against Christians. And it's the literal opposite. Israel, more than any nation on the planet, more than the United States of America, has been sending its troops, risking its troops, sending to the front line to save Christians, to save Druze, to save others who are trapped in Sunni or Shia majority places that are calling for their destruction, their genocide. Israel has been saving them. Israel's been saving them from, horrible fates, including being sold as sex slaves, including being murdered, and the exact opposite. When Israel went in to do this, the world attacked Israel as though Israel's starting another war. And it's the exact opposite. Israel's the moral actor. Only afterwards did this come to America's attention. Only after Israel did it. But again, the damage is done. Everything Israel does honestly to do as well as it can to do what's righteous and just. And the spin against it is just honestly satanic.
Well, and Logan, I want to bring this up before we end this segment, because I've been seeing that in some of the right-wing media sphere that, Israel actually isn't protecting Christians. They're committing genocide against Christians as well. Some of the most well-known names in conservative media are doing this lie. But one of the very first film projects that we worked on here at the ACLJ was a movie called Unshaken. What was the ACLJ doing? A lot of people that watch this show now don't know about this. There was a man who had a family, they were a Christian family in Gaza, and he ran the only Christian bookstore in Gaza. And he was killed and dragged through the streets of Gaza by Hamas and the Islamists there. Brutally murdered. And then they tried to take his wife and kids and give them to the imam in the community there.
As a gift.
As a gift after they murdered the family, trying to also, that's a genocidal tactic, because then they are forcibly converted to Islam. So their Christianity and their lineage is wiped out. And what did the ACLJ do? We worked with Israel to get that family out of Gaza. And we did that in the middle of a war. And you know where they went? They went to the Judea and Samaria to be with their family. That is not genocide by Israel. Israel worked with the ACLJ, and we saw that to fruition.
That's right. And Jeff, I know you got something to say. We only got 10 seconds. Go ahead, though. I'll let you take it out.
Well, in many ways, Israel is a light into the nations, and unfortunately, the media is just blacking that out.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel. Stay informed anytime, anywhere with the Salem News Channel and 9:30 a.m. TheAnswer.com. This has been The Daily Answer, sponsored by Salem Surround on The Answer Now TV.